Hi, Mr. Webb's classes. I was going to try to go over this with you in person, but I'm actually going to ask Isabel and Molly to help facilitate because I am off to a conference this afternoon, so I'm going to miss periods 4 and 7. The reason I'm doing this is because the way Mr. Webb teaches the class, I really don't have a chance to work with you on research throughout the year because the curriculum is so tight and so structured and so test-driven. So now is my chance to teach you all the things that I've been teaching all the other classes all year. So I want to make sure that you have a chance to be filled in because we just surveyed all of our students, and you may remember this. You came into the labs with your English teacher to take us 2 surveys, and those who did the worst were actually the seniors, and of the seniors who did poorly, it was the AP students who actually did the worst because in many cases they haven't worked with a librarian since their sophomore year or even earlier because of the Apush curriculum being so intense and not giving a lot of room for research and exploration. So I really want to seize this moment now that you're done with your exam to have a chance to push out a little bit of information I've been sharing with the other classes. So now we're going to go to the high school library website. So here we are at the high school library website. Some of you may remember that we used to post all of our social studies instruction to Moodle. Now we post it to the annex, which is right here. If you look at the annex, you'll see that the first project that's listed here, it takes a little while to load. It's a pretty media-rich blog, so we have to wait till the whole page loads and then we can start to scroll down. The first project here is American Soldiers, and that's for Ms. Brown's juniors. So that might actually include some of you because that's an honors program, honors class. So if you scroll down, you get to the Apush Curriculum. And I was going to try to break it down to 3 separate blocks, and I decided I'd put all the assignments into one. I still have some posting to do on the Cold War, on the Cost of War project, but the resources are pretty solid for Iran and for the Arab Spring project. I've linked to the actual assignments here. Mr. Webb's website is linked here. One of the things that's changed this year is when you're using the online catalog, which is called Destiny, you must log on with your NCPS username and password because we now have 1,400 ebooks that are listed in there, and we also have all of the websites that we have indexed into our online catalog and incorporated into our collection. Those are all indexed there. The only way you can access electronic resources in the online catalog is if you sign in. So one way to avoid signing in every time is to, if you have an iOS or a Droid device, is to download the app for Destiny Quest, which is great. It's like that. So it's really helpful because once you've signed in on the app, you can just use the app interchangeably. You can also friend students within Destiny, which is great if you're working in group projects, and all 3 of these projects are group driven. So you can share resources through Destiny and use that app for that. You can also access all the ebooks and all the articles that Mr. Webb identified in the handout. So if you look in the Arab Spring project, you'll see that all of the articles are there. He lists out articles. He says, go to the BBC in this part, but they're not linked. Well, those links are now in Destiny Quest or online catalog, so it's a really helpful way to find those things. A lot of students don't know how to set up their device for Wi-Fi access. Here's the Wi-Fi request because that works great with an MP3 player, like an iPod Touch. So you can use an iPod Touch just as you would use an iPad or a phone if you set up your Wi-Fi in the building. So here's the Wi-Fi request, and if you're not sure where your MAC address is, the instructions are right above it. So those are 2 things you should probably sign into and get set up for next year. It'll get you going, and it'll make the rest of this year easier. So that's one thing. We have 1,400 ebooks. The bulk of those are nonfiction ebooks that are great for this kind of research. We've identified those that will work well with Arab Spring and with Iran. So if you search for those in the online catalog, you'll get all the ebooks under the Digital Resources tab. Again, follow the instructions here for downloading Destiny Quest. It's a really nice little tutorial that will help you explore those things because the electronic resources are not in the same tab as the print resources, so you have to be able to navigate within the app. I've given you some direct links to websites that are very helpful. CIA World Factbook, World Bank Countries and Regions, New York Times Countries and Territories, and UN Country Profiles. Those are all free websites that are helpful for your research. I think you will find them useful. Mr. Webb gave me this one, kiosco.net, a while back, and it's a great resource for basically current newspapers from around the world, and you can choose your country or your region, and you can start looking for the countries. Obviously, they are in the native tongue of the country that is publishing them in most cases, so you can use Babelfish, which is a translation tool, to just copy and paste the link and put it into Babelfish. It won't be a very good translation, but at least it'll give you some flavor of what's going on. The key about using newspapers to sort of get your bearings is it really gives you an idea of what's hot in the news today in that country. Another way to do that is to go to Twitter. Enter a hashtag for your country, and if you go into Discover, it will give you the hottest news coming out of that region. A lot of it will be garbage, but a lot of it will be good. To identify some keywords that will help you later identify some really valid and relevant newspaper articles. If you do a database search for politics in Syria, you're going to find more generic stuff that is probably going to take you further back in time as opposed to what's going on today. If you search for Twitter and it comes up with a list of keywords, let's say this list of keywords, for example, and this was a few months back, so it's not hot, it's not current. That's going to help you really get some very targeted articles that are relevant to what's going on today, and that's why I recommend Twitter. As far as Wikipedia goes, you're welcome to use it, but be sure to check view history. So if you go to the view history, that's going to give you an explanation of who's been contributing to this article. Red flag, people who are in red, those are the ones you want to be careful of. One of the things you want to look for is a lot of like back and forth in very recent times, because that means that it's probably not going to be too stable. Stability is a good thing in a Wikipedia article, so an occasional update every 4 or 5 days, that's fine. But if you have a flurry of activity, it becomes kind of unstable and you're not really sure what's reputable, because it usually means that there's a lot of bias that's being fed into it. So I've got instructions on what to look for in Wikipedia here. For databases, there are a number that we recommend. Hopefully you remember how to get into the database page. The username and password are in your planner on page 41, and I'll also include a link here. There's an app for all the Gale products, so that's all their ebooks and all their databases. And we don't have ProQuest Platinum anymore. We now have Gale Newsstand, and that means that that's included in that app. It's a very useful app, and it makes your searching quite easy. So I strongly recommend that you download that one too. It's available for iOS and for Droid devices. Global perspective, I'm sure some of you have had some experience working with opposing viewpoints before. The global issues in context is the international version of that database. Do a place name when you're doing a search in Newsstand. There's some great tutorials down here. I would love to see you watch them, because I really haven't had a chance to work with you all year, and I feel like I want to make sure that we're in the right place instructionally at the start of next year. There's one more thing I showed the class this morning, and that's the EasyBib app. Well, first of all, EasyBib, if you sign into Google Apps, if you are in any part of the Google Apps domain, all you have to do is click on More and choose EasyBib, and boom, you're signed in. That's done. So that makes your life a whole lot easier. It's also part of the landing page when you go to Google Docs. There's your EasyBib. So if you're at the high school library website, click on Google Apps, and
I like that.
Then you scroll down, and you can click on EasyBib that way too. So those are two ways that you can get there. It's the premium account, so it's ad-free, and it's linked to Google Docs. So any work that you have, you can just push straight out to Google Docs, and it will end up there. The first thing you should do when you push it out to Google Docs is rename it. That's one of the things that students have been missing. That's that. And the other thing I wanted to show you is that there's an there's an app for EasyBib. Take a book. I can scan the back of the book, and it gives me the citation for that book, which I can then email to myself. It's very cool. So sorry, this is kind of long-winded, a lot of activity going on here, but I really wanted to make sure I gave you a chance to find out about these things.